So we just talked about the talent assessment and development framework. And so how can it actually be used? And we're going to be talking about this in various forms over the coming weeks because there's so much happening in this space right now. And again, when we talk to Rob, we'll actually see and talk about some details of what they're doing with their open source skills database, which has been hugely exciting, not only for what they are doing, but for many customers who are actually consuming this data and utilizing it in their respective organizations. So here we have a means in which to align job descriptions, assessment and development strategies internally, and recruiting and selection processes externally. And so why is this not being used? And what can we do to actually bring it to life? So again, if you have been around PAFOW events in the past, you've seen this model. It is a derivative of the workforce planning model, and I'm not going to go through the whole structure right now. That's why I just put it up here. But I want to focus on the first two buckets on the left here when we talk about talent planning. We need an assessment strategy, and I'm struck when I talk to organizations. I say, well, what are you looking for? And so we're looking for people with the right skills. And now it goes back to the conversation we just had. Well, what skills are you looking for? And more often than not, it goes straight to the hard skills. And again, I'm using that legacy term intentionally for clarity at this point. But the technical skills to do the work, then you'll have a leader or OD professional say, well, they need to be a fit. They need to be a cultural fit. What does that mean? Well, they need to have a growth mindset. Well, how are you assessing for that? How are you going to encourage that over time? Through training programs, how are you going to develop that? So very rarely has it been the case that there's been a systematic strategy to assess people over time. So again, externally as well as when they come in the organization. Now, I don't say that to shame anyone or call anybody out and say, oh, yeah, you should be doing this. It's really to highlight the fact that there's a massive opportunity that we can step into right now, and particularly with people working remotely. We have to provide resources and clarity on how they can not only do their work done more efficiently and effectively, but how they can take care of themselves and contribute positively to the culture, while also again, creating space and putting boundaries so they can attend to family needs and personal needs, because it's now truly work-life, integration. So with that in mind, if we have that strategy, we can now have a data strategy. So here, if we have the people data and worker life cycle, as I call it, you can see that there's a host of technologies that underpin this worker life cycle. So you have people externally applying, so they become candidates and now they're assessed. So they're in an applicant tracking system. There might be a pre-employment assessment. There could be a structural behavioral interview, all that generate data. Now, where's that data going? How is that informing the onboarding process once they become part of the organization? Does the language and the data that's being used align with what they experienced when they first started with the organization? Oftentimes not, because it's a totally disparate group and they're not connected. So again, herein lies a massive opportunity. So where I'm going to wrap this up, and so we can make way and get into more details on this with Rob, is we're going to have a decision as an organization. What are we going to do from a taxonomy perspective, from a measurement perspective? Are we going to create all this stuff ourselves internally? Or are we going to source some of this externally from experts who have already done much of the work? So now we can align our internal processes with what's happening out there in the world. In so doing, we can not only have a cohesive talent strategy, but that talent strategy can align with what's happening in the educational world, what's happening with economic development groups in certain geographical regions. We can actually formulate partnerships potentially with other, say, outsourced providers who, again, are using similar language, who have similar goals to our own organization. So with that, we'll take one more commercial break, and then we'll come back with Rob Sense, Chief Innovation Officer at EMSI.